All right, there he is. It's been a little bit since we've talked to him because he's been traveling so much, hopping on trains and automobiles and on beaches and things like that. Okay, Glenn, give us an update. Where are you? Where do you sit on this Thursday over in Europe?
Well, right now I happen to be in Liverpool, yes, and the home of maybe the best band of all time, the Beatles, and we were a week in London, which was very interesting in a lot of ways. Big city, lots of stuff. But Liverpool, if you are a Beatles fan, you have to come to Liverpool because the way they celebrate that band and have taken so much pride in that band is just remarkable. It's everywhere you go. Staying in the Hard Day's Night Hotel. Didn't get the John Lennon or Paul McCartney room, but I think they were way too pricey.
You got the Clarence room. He was the fifth Beatle. If anyone remembers that Saturday Night Live skit with Eddie Murphy. But okay, I hope my wife's listening to this right now, just because I'm a big Beatles fan, and the golf course stretch around Liverpool is unreal. Like you take that one train and you can play some big ones, and then there's just a number. Okay, but continue. Keep me jealous here.
Okay, so first of all, I had before we got here, I had heard from some people that had been here that it was a town that was a little sketchy and you had to be careful. That is absolutely not the truth. This is a beautiful city, great history. And as I mentioned, the Beatles, we went now a couple of nights ago to the Cavern Hotel bar, the pub. And this, you've heard of this. This is a world-renowned
Cavern Club.
The Cavern Club is where the Beatles played over 200 sets in the afternoons, at night. That's, if you're watching the podcast, that's the entrance of it right there. And then you go down a few floors. Now you're way in the basement. That used to be an old bomb shelter. Now it's been rebuilt with the original bricks because of a government thing, and we won't get into that. But that is the cavern has been for the last, 30, 40 years. And it goes back even farther to the 50s. So these are the guys that have played down. Chuck Berry, Rolling Stones, the Queen, the Who, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, Eric Clapton, and, over 200 performances of the Beatles. So we're down there and I'm talking to a salty dog who actually saw the Beatles play in the venue. And I asked him about Paul McCartney. I asked him about the Beatles. He said, do you know that Paul McCartney, when he was 13 years old, living here in Liverpool, by the way, all four of them did and grew up here. When he was 13, his church choir master told him, you're not a good enough singer to sing in the church choir when he was 13 years old. 7 years later, they were the biggest band in the world and Beatlemania was going crazy. And he went back and sang in that same church. And I bring that up, Barney, because, the Combine's coming up. I know as an athlete, I was told by teachers sometimes and counselors, all with good intents, but they were saying, you know what, you're probably not fast enough to play pro football. You're probably not strong enough. That's an elite level. And I think about the kids going in the Combine to put it in perspective like Paul McCartney did, that if you keep working, don't listen to people that tell you that your dream is over and you're not going to be good enough. Keep working, put your nose down, get working hard, and it can happen for you. And I started thinking about young athletes getting ready for tryouts like the Combine. And Paul McCartney, and you've heard the story about Michael Jordan, same thing, cut by his high school basketball coach. Didn't let that end his dream, went on to be one of the best, if not the best ever. So if Paul McCartney can bounce back from a guy telling him he can't sing.
Wow. Jeez. I wonder, has McCartney ever just showed up at the Cavern Club and gone up on stage and just kind of, the surprise?
Yes. He actually does that quite often in the city, apparently. He has his name on a fine arts school, and it's called the Institute of Liverpool Performing Arts School. And every graduate of that school, and I hate bringing myself into the story, but my son Jared researched it in a big way. He was going to go either there here in Liverpool, or he was going to go to Nashville, and he ended up picking Nashville. But this school, Paul McCartney himself shakes the hand of every graduate from his school here in Liverpool. Could you imagine being a young kid learning music and writing songs at 19, 21 years old, and Paul McCartney is congratulating you for graduating from the school? It's quite a city. And Barney, if I'm telling you, if you're a Beatles fan, you have got to come to Liverpool. They take great pride in that group, and it is everywhere.
I have to go. That's all there is. That's all there is to it. Good job, Kurt. Look at those hairdos, eh? If you're watching the stream, the boys had flow for sure back in the day. Okay, let's get into this. Let's get into the combine. Like the draft can be really important. From your perspective, Glenn, how important is the CFL Combine?
Well, I'll put it this way, and I don't want to be over dramatic here, but the teams that are successful in evaluating the talent and the personalities and character of the players, that to me is as important as their actual measurables, whether it's the 40 or anything like that. If you like your interview process, if you feel like this kid and you make those decisions based on all of that, and you do that right more often than you do it wrong, you're going to be in the Grey Cup multiple times. I don't want to be over dramatic with it, but developing quarterbacks in the CFL and your Canadian talent in the CFL is the two most important aspects of building a championship team. And, I think if you look at the Canadian talent on the Bombers, who have been there 5 times in a row, you'll see that Canadian talent, a guy like, not even, Oliveira, but a guy like Reddick Cramdy, who is a star linebacker, and we're just scratching the surface on him. He was a guy that was kind of overlooked in the draft and and then in the combine, he stepped up and started really making plays in the one-on-ones and caught the eye of the Bombers staff, and they picked him up. And now he's going to be a perennial starter for that team if he stays healthy. So, and not only a starter, but an all-star. So it's guys like that. That's how important it is. And I think not to downplay the big American receivers and guys like that come up here, but I would suggest that if you have a free agent camp in LA, you will see 100 players that are pretty pro ready because of their university programs and because they started playing football when they were 6, not hockey when they were 6, and not playing football till they're in grade 11 or 12. So that's the difference in the timing of it. And you're going to find receivers and linebackers and DBs in those free agent camps in the States. What you have to do is really the evaluation in interviews. I don't want to take anything away from developing quarterbacks. That's key. If you don't have a quarterback that you believe in that can win, you can win with, it's over, basically. But next to that is the Canadian content, and that's where the combine comes in, and that's where the draft comes in.
Yeah, I think the quarterback thing, as you speak of, I don't know enough about it, so I'm really curious when it's here next week to learn more about it and how important it is. Because back in your day, was there even a combine?
Yeah, actually, no, there wasn't really a combine like it's set up now. Back in my day, the scouts kind of came to the schools and they timed you, and there was I was playing at SFU at the time. And they would come up, and SFU and UBC guys were all there, and they would sort of do their little testing and interviews on their own. Actually, we didn't really even do an interview. We sort of test. And I wanted to bring up, too, about the testing.
What was your 40 time, Glenn?
Well, I tell everyone that it was forever. But no, it was it was I think my best time ever was a 4.59 on a track. About 4, probably 7 was my 4.65. It was about, now there are some O&D linemen running 4.65s now, but let me
I'm picturing you in like the shorts, high socks in the 80s, just going. Okay, continue.
well, I also would like to bring up that in the bench, I had 27 reps. Oh. So there are O&M'men that are not getting 20 reps too. So there was that angle of it too. But let me bring up what I think is important, and I hope there's young guys that are going to the combine listening, because the 40 to me is a bit of a I don't know if it's a real indication of
false indicator.
Yeah, it really is.
Like bench press is. They should be doing dips instead of bench press.
Yeah, even the tests alone. Like, for instance, I'll tell you what's happening right now with a lot of those combine players that are coming in now. Right now, they are working on their start for a 40. So, if you're trained as a track athlete, you know what I'm talking about, that track athletes train and take hours training coming out of their stance, because if you come out of your stance low, keep your head down, and you're driving out of that stance, you get a better 40 time. The first 20 yards of a 40 are crucial in your final time. And what I'm suggesting is, why are we asking young football players to spend hours training on running a 40 when not one position starts with their head down in a 3-point stance in a football game? It doesn't make any sense to me that we are putting so much emphasis on how fast a guy runs in a 40. What I would rather see is you test DBs backpedaling, turning, and then catching up to a receiver. What is their makeup time? How fast are they on the field? Ray Elgard, I think his best time was probably a 4.8, or maybe, I think one year he ran a 5 flat 40 in testing. Ray Elgard on the field would run by the fastest DBs on every other team all the time. So he had games.
Scared of him.
Well, that was part of it.
This guy coming down with a handlebar mustache and a mullet. I'm getting out of the way.
That was part of it, without question. But I just, and again, look, I know what they're doing. They want to see what type of athletic power these guys have, their quickness, their speed, those kind of things. But I think there's way too much emphasis on 40 times. Not even a receiver comes out of a 3-point stance in the CFL. It's motion. It's hitting the line on the run. They're always standing up with their head up, or else they're going to get jammed at the line of scrimmage by a DB. So, and then you can also add this, Barney, the difference between a 4.6 and a 4.4 is that it's not even noticeable to the naked eye.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. What was Nick Lewis's 40? Who cares?
Yeah.
Guy was unreal for his stature. Have you been contacted about the commissioner position?
Okay, I keep working on this, and I keep coming up with a big fat 0, and I hate to admit that, because it just seems so quiet. And this is with a week before the combine beginning. This is where, I think the CFL really needs to be stepping up from the league office and promoting the combine, not just for the people in Regina that will actually be able to go and see it, but promoting it from a, young prospects angle. Like let's get those names out there, not just on the website, but let's get them on, talk radio, everything else, so that we can start talking about the future stars. We do a really good job of it in this country in hockey. But, you and I, Barney, know what's going on in the world right now and how patriotic we have all become for a lot of different reasons. And I would love to see the Canadian Football League office start to take advantage of that. And I don't mean it in a, a facetious or a negative way. I mean, like, start to promote how Canadian our game really is. And the Canadian Combine is an excellent starting point for that. I mean, these are young that are getting a chance to play pro football in their backyard with their team in a league that's been around for 120 years. Without a commissioner, an active working commissioner, it's hard for any of those sort of initiatives to get kickstarted here. And we're running out of time. We're a week away to the Combine. Then we got the draft coming up quickly afterwards. And, let's start waving the Canadian flag about our league. I don't know. I haven't heard any new news. That's a long way around to getting to apologizing for not being a very good insider.
Yeah. Well, first off, very patriotic, and I'll be so patriotic on April 1st when the carbon tax goes up again. But what I heard from our Saskatchewan guy is, will the league look at a financial guy with just a passion for football and the Canadian Football League, not a former player, the guy who's still nameless. He's from the financial industry. He thinks he has a clear plan for expansion based on market size and different streams of revenue. The TV deal that's up in, after this season, which is huge. How many suitors, there's a pun, are going to be in that, right? And what about streaming? Are we factoring in streaming companies into this new? Where's gambling going? Do you think that would work, or is that to have a fair look and get a fair shake as a guy that's coming from the financial side?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, it depends on that passion and the level of
definitely passionate. I can tell you that.
Yeah, the passion and level, but also level of what makes our game great. I think it's tough to sell a product when you don't know what about the product is making it great. Why is the Canadian Football League great, and why is it worth your money, and why is it worth growing in the expansion or adding companies and revenue streams and streaming services and things like that. So yes, the business aspect of it is absolutely important. But when you look at history in this, we have had guys that have been involved with big shoe companies prior. We've had guys that have run businesses that know and love the league, but didn't know really what it was that they were selling. What is the best part? What makes the league great? I think if it's a time in the history of the league right now, Barney, that we make sure that the commissioner that's hired this time takes care of the detail in messaging. Yes, we have to grow the game and expansion, and certainly the TV contract and the possibility of streaming, even if it's competition, a game a week, and that pushes, it floats all boats. The competition does, and that's what we've seen in golf and hockey and other things where streaming companies are picking up one game a week, but that's more revenue. That's more revenues.
That's what he brought up. That's what he brought up. So I can't wait to introduce you to him, and then you guys can talk. And I don't know if that'll be in Regina or Saskatoon, or if we come to you. Maybe I do the introduction on a golf course somewhere in BC, right? I see how I'm playing things, Glenn. What's in it for Barney? Dude, have so much fun in Liverpool. I can't wait to hear about it. You said you heard it was a sketchy town. Doesn't sound like it is. Let us know if there's any people getting undressed and naked in produce departments, and then say, well, I know a place where they do that, and I don't see that happening in Liverpool. That's a Regina joke that we'll get into next week with you, Glenn. Okay. Safe travels, buddy. Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Barney. Appreciate it.